Hey folks. Hello, hello. My name is Kevin Smith. I'm the area manager for Myriad and wanted to just take a quick moment and thank each and every one of you for your attendance tonight. I realize Tuesday night we just got through Snowmageddon, and it's nice that each of you took time out of your busy schedule to come and spend some time with us tonight at our dinner program. So thank you for that. I wanted to introduce our local team. Most of you know Heather King, as well as Tammy Kimball. These two are responsible, and I wanted to thank them for putting this evening together. We've got a great venue, perfect place for some fellowship and some learning as well. So thank you both for what you did for this evening. We also, too, tonight have the privilege of a guest speaker. And there's a reason I'm not going to do the introduction. I want to hand off to Tammy, and soon as she pieces it together, you'll understand why. So thank you again.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. We have such a wonderful variety of group of people, and I really appreciate, like Kevin said, you all taking the time out of your schedule to come out this evening. I am so honored and proud and happy to introduce our speaker. She's a patient speaker and the best around. I mean, she's just super. She's beautiful, she's talented, she's courageous. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce my sister, Dr. Cynthia Kimball Davis.
Well, you know, when a sister introduces you, you get to tell stories, right? So I'd like to start, first of all, thanking you for being here, because it's not a good way to start. It's about saving lives, and it's a good sign that you're here. I'd like to ask you a question to start off. How many of you would want to stop cancer in your family? Raise your hand. That's pretty cool. How many of you would want to stop cancer in your practice? Okay, very good. Well, that's something that we learned as a family, and that's something that we'll talk about tonight. And it can be done because that's something that we did, and it's something that you can do too. They say knowledge is power, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, are a few new things. Maybe you already know, or maybe you don't. Sometimes it's good to have a review. And they say repetition, there's a purpose for repetition, is so that we remember. So the title of my talk is Find a Pre-viver, Save a Life, Impact a Family Tree. So does anyone know what a pre-viver is? Does everyone know what a pre-viver is? Or is there anyone who doesn't know? Okay. So, okay, good. So a pre-viver is someone who tests positive for a mutation but does not have cancer, okay? So in our family, we'll talk about survivors, I'm one of them, and pre-vivers. And so we have those in our family as well. And you may run into these folks in your practice and in your family, and you might even be one yourself. Let's actually, let's take a poll. How many survivors do we have any kind of cancer in the audience? Let's give a round of applause for those people. And how many pre-vivers are in the audience here? So those who, my sister Tammy, right? Okay, right, you're running applause. Thank you to all the volunteers and to the restaurant and to Women of Hope Foundation for putting this on, and Myriad Genetics for all of those folks for bringing me here. So thank you most of all for you, and excited to be here. So let's get going here. So how many people, anyone want to sing the Brady Bunch theme song? Does everyone know what the Brady Bunch is? Okay. Sometimes that dates us. So let's start. It's Here's a Story. So let's start it. Here's a story, right? Here's. Okay. Well, keep going. Keep going. So in this case, we'll say, here's a story of a family named Kimball. And, you know, the Brady Bunch is a great story, you know, about two families coming together. We put Alice in here because we needed another person. But 1 in 1,000 is the chance that all 5 girls in a family would test positive for BRCA1, one of the breast and ovarian cancer mutations, also known as hereditary cancers, one of the hereditary cancers. So it was 1994, and I was living in Japan. I was married to a military guy, and I went to the doctor. We found a pea-sized lump in my left breast, and I had 3 doctors, including a surgeon, say, it's probably not cancer. So I'm like, cool. I didn't even think. I never thought anyone like me would get a cancer, or I thought that happened to older people or just other people. And so I was pretty shocked when they came back and said, you have breast cancer. And I thought, oh my goodness, I think they're talking to me. And I remember I had my surgery done in Japan, and I remember looking at like a Good Housekeeping magazine or something, and it's talking about breast cancer. And if you're over 50 or 50, you can take this survey. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just turned 31, and I need to take this. And so I came stateside and had chemo and radiation in North Carolina, right? Okay. And do you say North Kakalaki? Okay, all right. In North Kakalaki and in Durham. So it was great. So I had a wonderful oncologist. And if anyone in a clinic, I went back to school a couple years ago and finished a PhD, and I talked about heart-based hope, leadership, and action. And if you are in a clinic, please ask questions and love your patients and love each other, because it makes a difference. You may be the person at the front desk that somebody comes and shares something with, and you may be their champion. So all of you are important. So remind me to talk about some of the offices that I've talked at, and some neat things they're doing. So anyhow, we thought we were done. I had Dr. Eric Weiner in Durham, and my sister had done a nursing rotation with him, and things happen for a reason. She had a nursing rotation with this oncologist, and he ended up being my oncologist. And he took a day off. Listen to this. He took a day off and came in when I came back from Japan and met with me. And talked about what we were going to do. So I had the chemo, radiation, a lumpectomy. And I was missing a piece of my breast, and the husband at the time said, what are you going to do with that? And I said, this? He said, yeah, that. And I was like, he said, plastic surgery, right? Well, I'm not with him any longer. So, but his loss, thank you. He wasn't ready for that. And sometimes people aren't ready for that. Sometimes you hear that there's a family that has muscular dystrophy. Kids are diagnosed and they'll die by the age of 20, and divorce. Sometimes, and it's okay. People are ready at different times. I had a couple situations like that, but I will say he called me up down the road, and I think he was in Bosnia, and he said, I just want to tell you we're one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And so if we can find good in people instead of talking bad about them, even if they weren't there for us, that's okay. That's okay. So we thought we were done with me. And 5 years later, Christy, she's wearing the yellow there, was diagnosed with breast cancer in her 30s. 2 years after that, Wendy, middle left, diagnosed with breast cancer in her 30s. And so we're like, what the heck is going on with our family, these young breast cancers? And so they think, well, we should test at the top of the tree. We should actually test the mom. And when I speak around the country, sometimes offices will think that breast cancer can only come from the dad's side of the family. The mom's side of the family. And so that's what they wanted to do, is they test my mom. Well, my mom is negative, so by default, it's my dad that we have the mutation from. All 5 girls test positive for BRCA1, breast and ovarian cancer mutation, which is highly unusual. Typically, only half of the children, the offspring, will inherit the mutation. but all 5 of us did. It's like 1 in 1,000 chance, something like that. And so my dad's feeling a little guilty, but really, what can you do? It's nothing he could do, nothing he could do. But it actually ended up being a really great thing. So this is our paternal grandmother, Geraldine. She met me when I was a baby. I don't remember her, but all I knew about her is that she had died of breast cancer. And so when we looked, there wasn't a maternal genealogy with this stuff. It was actually my dad's side of the family. And so when we looked closer, we found more. And so my dad is the carrier. His mother died of breast cancer. We believe his grandmother died of ovarian and his great-grandmother died of breast. But sometimes way back then, they just say female cancers, right? But does anybody have a Kleenex? See what happens when you start, and I'll probably snort here in a little bit, but anyhow, so when you start looking, genealogy is fabulous. I think if I were to go back to school, thank you. So I think if I were to go back to school, I would study genetics. It's fascinating what they can find. Back in 1994, it was like in the infancy of genetics, and now the things that they're finding. And genetics is saving lives, knowing stuff. And people say, I don't want to know this stuff in my family. Well, it can keep you alive. Instead of burying somebody, we can find out information to keep people alive. And that's where you come in the offices, is you can find us and identify us and save lives. And if you are a patient, the more information that you have and you take that into your clinic, the better they will be. Because I will tell you, if I go into an office and some of them around the country say, well, we don't tell our patients about genetic testing because we know they can't afford things, so we're not going to tell them. And I think, I'm out of this office. That would so not be an office I would go to. Or we're not going to tell them because they can't afford to put food on their table. I'm out of this office because if they're not even going to give me the information, let me make that decision. I'm out of here. Or if they're Googling what breast and ovarian cancer mutation is in front of me, I'm out of that office. Okay? So there's lots of reasons I might check out. But check your genealogy, and you may find a pattern that can help save your life. So when we started going and checking my family, I'll just keep going through, all 5 of us, like I said, have the BRCA1 mutation. But of my dad's 8 siblings, 4 have it as well, and 4 don't. Our Aunt Judy died of breast cancer. We assume she had it. But so you can, genealogy, again, is fascinating, what you can find. And again, we found BRCA1. If anyone has any questions as we go along, feel free to ask, or you can ask them at the end as well. So that's, here's my, this is information. It's a little bit more colorful today and more detailed information. When you find out your results from genetic testing, they actually tell you how you can manage your health. We didn't have that back in the day. Matter of fact, no one asked me my family history. No one asked me my family history, and I don't believe it was the same with Wendy or Christy, my middle sister and older sister as well. Ask about family history, because when you do, it will save lives. How many people are asking about family history in their offices right now? Awesome. You get a round of applause for that, because you're saving lives doing that. And how many are asking about paternal cancers and maternal cancers and the ages? Awesome, awesome, that's awesome. That's how you find us. And how many of you are asking about family history every time we come? Awesome, very good, very good. Because family history changes. It changes, and you need to know about that. As a patient, and in offices, you need to know family history changes. So here we are, all 5 of us. So you'll see that the 3 oldest were survivors, and the 2 youngest, Tammy being one of them, are pre-vivers. Again, pre-viver, those who test positive for the mutation but have no cancer. So what you want to do is identify people and families so that you can stop cancer in a family, just like we did. And we found, again, my mother was negative, my father was the carrier. That'd be pretty cool to stop cancer in someone's family, wouldn't it? It can be done. Actually, that's what we've done. So what we're finding now is we're not finding any more cancers. We're finding mostly negatives and some positives. But a negative is still an answer. A negative is still an answer. And I remember meeting with one patient in Pennsylvania. She said, I don't want to test. I don't want to know. I have ovarian cancer in my family, and we have the mutation. I think it was 1, BRCA1. And I know I have ovarian cancer, and I know I'm going to have the mutation. And I talked to her, and I said, look at me. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm doing well. And I'm helping others. And we're educating people, and we're saving lives. And we're spreading hope. And I have peace of mind, and I was empowered to make a decision. And you can be empowered to make a decision too. Sometimes that fear, I say fear-based, it can kill somebody, over and over. Oh, I have it, and just living in fear. It's not a good place to be. But when you live in hope, so I got a card from her 3 months later, and guess what she did? She tested, and she was negative. And she thanked me, and now she was at peace. But even if she were positive, it's still an answer, and she could do something about it. We've had 5 prophylactic double mastectomies, and we compare our works of art. Who has the best plastic surgery job, right? And we've also had our ovaries, fallopian tubes, we've had every female part taken out. But we're still female. I feel the sexiest I've ever felt in my life. Isn't that awesome? And my husband tells me that too. And I'll just say it, I have areolas that are tattooed in and they fade. And I told my husband, I need to go get these tattooed so they're darker. And he's like, no, you don't need to do that. I'm like, I don't? He's like, no. Don't do that. So someone loves you even when your areolas are faded, right? So that's the man you need to be with. And they're out there. They're out there. It just took me a little while to find them. But if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't have found them. I wouldn't have found them. So check your genealogy, because you may have this. So if we can prevent people from being survivors, we don't want people to get cancer. We want them to be pre-vivers. And people say, I've had doctors tell me this around the country, and I almost want to throw up. We don't see patients like you. I say, you don't? Yes, you do. We come in your office every single day. And matter of fact, one time I went to an emergency room and I had makeup on and I was in a sweatsuit, and I'll tell you a little bit about heart stuff here in a minute. And the lady checked me and she says, you don't have anything wrong with your heart. You look so healthy. Don't go to the emergency room with makeup on or wearing running shoes or a tracksuit. They'll think you're healthy. But you do see us every single day. Every single day you see us. We walk in your office, but the only way you're going to find us is if you ask us about our family history. The paternal side, because it comes from the dad too, and the maternal side and the ages. And you're going to ask us about family history when? Every time we come, because family history changes. We're done. You guys are good. You got this. Let's see what else we got. We'll just do a few more. So anyhow, I got radiation-induced heart disease because I had left chest radiation. And there was a period, a window of years where other people got it as well. I went to a major medical center in Los Angeles, and they diagnosed me there. They said women were coming from all over the world that had had the same thing. And if you identify us, perhaps I wouldn't have needed my left chest radiation. You see, if you identify us, you can give us right treatments and right surgeries that we may not need additional things. So looking back, I may not have needed actually the left chest radiation. So anyhow, here's my daily regime of medicine. So I have 3 heart meds and a nitro patch when I have an angina attack. But it's all good. But if you can prevent someone from having these heart meds every day, one of them, they give me free meds because it's so expensive. If you can identify patients so they don't have to have this, wouldn't that be worth it? Okay, this is just one benefit, not to have to do this. Okay? So anyhow, I finally got an answer because I went to many different offices and they said, so that you know, women's heart testing is different from men's heart testing. So if you have something wrong with your heart, let me know and I'll hook you up with the people who test for women's heart. They said I was a hypochondriac. They said I was crazy. There are a few other things. They said there's nothing wrong with your heart, and I found out there was. We know our bodies, right? Okay. So then BRC can be related to pancreatic melanoma. You know, some of the big heavy ones, I'm like, they're really cancer? They're all heavy, aren't they? So they found some nodules on my pancreas a couple years ago, so I went to up in Salt Lake at a cancer institute there. And then we did some more testing, and 2 tests found it, but one, I did some additional testing, and they didn't find him. So I feel like that was an answer to prayer. And I will tell you that people say, how'd you get through all this? Faith, right? Faith. And endure, and believe, and serve others. Okay? So, right, everything's good. Genetic test results are not all that bad because you can do a lot of good with that. You can do great things with this information. For instance, this is 2004. People magazine went to our oncologist, who we've now had for over 20 years. They said, do you happen to know a family who has a genetic legacy with the hereditary breast and ovarian cancer mutations? He's like, yeah, actually I do. So this ran, and I've run into so many people that have seen this and have taken action because of this. So knowledge is power, and your story can go in places and it can spread and help save lives. Matter of fact, Jessica Queller, I don't know, there was a show called Gossip Girl. I don't even know if it's still on, but she helped write, this is Jessica Queller, she helped write that script. And she had ovarian cancer in her family and looked at the People magazine piece, and it helped her test. And she actually wrote this book called Pretty is What Changes, where she mentions us in this book. So your story can help save lives. So it can save lives. And just yesterday in Charleston, I guess there's a show called Lifetime Access Health. They did a taping for cancer and genetics. And so we were there, my sister Tammy, our niece Ann Christian, who I'll tell you about in just a little bit, that's Tammy's daughter, and myself, did a taping for this show, and they flew out. They were in Los Angeles today taping some other families for genetic cancers. So that'll come out on Wednesday, March 30th, so look for it, and we hope that we can save some more lives with it. We started a foundation, the Kimball Family Foundation, so that we can educate others about hereditary breast and ovarian cancers and donate money for research and things like that. So, you know, good things can come out of results, right? I'm glad I got cancer, and I'm glad I'm positive for the mutation. If today were my last day, I know that at least one life was saved, and it's all good, and it's going to be okay. And a man named Joseph Worthland said, come what may and love it. Come what may and love it. The good, the bad, the ugly. Come what may and love it. And figure out why it's coming to you and do something with it. And there was a man named Gordon B. Hinckley that he was once serving a mission over in England. He was like, I'm not doing any good. I want to come home. I'm homesick. And his dad, all he said was, forget yourself and get to work. That's all he said. It changed his life. Right? So when we take it off of us and focus on others, it makes a difference. This is Dr. Jonathan Herman. He has a clinic. He's an OBGYN in Long Island. He's Ashkenazi Jewish. Ashkenazi Jewish is one of the red flags for hereditary breast and ovarian cancer. And he has a high population of Ashkenazi Jewish around, and he sees like 30 patients a day. And if he has a waiting line, and people go see him because he will see them. No matter what, he will stay late and see those patients. And he is a physician. I interviewed him for my dissertation, and he says, I say to my patients, we are going to get through this. We. We're a team. We. He doesn't say things like, you're going to have your boobs cut off, or this is going to be horrible. This is a death sentence. He doesn't do any, that's fear-based stuff. He says, we are going to figure this out, and we are going to get through it. Because how you are communicating with patients, if you are in a clinic here, can determine the success of that patient. There was, I read something about 2 oncologists. It was for metastatic lung cancer. They were giving, it was experimental chemotherapy, and it actually spelled hope. One oncologist said, I'm giving you a dosage of hope. And the other one said, I'm giving a dosage of PEOH. Which patients do you think lived longer? Hope. The ones that were told, I'm giving you a dosage of hope, right? It makes a difference. So how you communicate with your patients makes a difference. It makes a difference to their how they live their lives, and the longevity of their lives, and they need you. They need that hope. And whether you're at their front desk or you're their doctor, all of you, give them hope. I love Dr. Herman. We were actually working on a book together called Letters to Doctors, and it was right during my dissertation. I said, I can't do both. So another patient actually ended up writing it with him. He's amazing. Here's the love of my life. This is Ryan. I love that man. And here's another clinic. So I go around and I teach people how to have hope in their offices and how to educate and how to identify us. Because if I could, I'd have a sash right now that would say, Miss BREC1, you see us. We come to your offices every single day. And there have been some offices where they've done a pilot for a week where they've used a special form to identify paternal and maternal cancers and ages, and how many high-risk patients were found. Offices have been shocked. I challenge all of you to do that, to see how many you find of us. Because when it's your mother, and it's your sister, and it's your cousins, or your son, or your father, because you can get this if you're a guy. I've got nephews. My dad has mammograms. My dad has to be watched closely for, he could get breast cancer and prostate cancer. This can happen to anyone, male or female. Sometimes speak at around the country at symposiums, genetic symposiums, conferences, things like that. Medical students to educate. We've had people come out of medical school and sometimes don't know about this. And again, only test on the maternal side of the family. This was up in Capitol Hill. They asked us to come speak to, neither of those senators, Republican or Democrat, shook my hand or said hello to me. I need to go back and say, hey. So speak different places. I love that you hear stories of a really wealthy person goes into a bank, and like a billionaire, and they're like in rags, and they don't give them the time of the day until they find out how much they have. There's something wrong with that. That was kind of how my experience was in Capitol Hill. There's something wrong with that. So it's a gift. I say cancer is a gift, and my mutation status is a gift. And finding out, testing, and I actually did a blood test, but you can do, if you don't like doing blood work, you can do a mouthwash. Saved my life and saved our family's life, and has impacted our family tree. So so I went back, and it was great. I was doing my dissertation, and then I was having some heart stuff in the middle, and I asked my committee members, can I change the topic of my dissertation? Because I really want to just write about what's happened to me, and I want to spread hope. And they were like, okay. So I actually have my cancer stuff in there, my heart stuff in there, and I like journalism, so I did a lot of writing, and my committee was like pulling back, like, okay, too much creative writing here. We got to have some academic stuff in here. But I did it. So it was an autoethnography of heart-based hope leadership. And there's my Ryan and me after graduation. So life is great for me, even though I found out all of these things. So when you find us, When you give us that family history and you ask us every time, because that family history changes, you save us. And you impact family trees. And you save those family trees. But you got to think about the next generation too. So my 21-year-old niece, she's now 23, far right, and Christian, went into her OBGYN's office in Charleston and said, I have this red flag Las Vegas Lights family. Like, it's crazy. Cancer all over the place and mutations. And he said, honey, you're too young. We don't need to worry about you. So she went to another OBGYN, and guess what happened when she tested? She's positive. And she was working on a book called 21 in BRAC. So when young patients come into you, and Christian is BRCA1. So now she's going to be managed a little differently, and she is going to do family planning a little differently, and it's okay. She cried for 6 hours, and then I was doing a talk in San Francisco, and she made a tape for me, and she was so good, and she's so strong, and she speaks around the country. Actually, she spoke to a sorority, I think, at UNC Wilmington recently. We come to see you, male and female, young and old. So my 2 nephews will need to test as well, because they could have it, and they could have it also. 50% of the offspring. Remember, all 5 of us, which is highly unusual, got it. But so so Ann Christian needs to, when she has children, right? So but now she has an answer. What does she have an answer? What does she have now with her children? She's got knowledge. So now we have a tool, family history and testing in our family, that we've stopped cancer, and she can do the same. We can continue it. So you got to be concerned about those next generation. This is our oncologist, Dr. Eric Weiner. We call him Weiner, and he's okay with that. But that was me when I was in North Carolina, and see the hair that was out, actually a checkup. That was my chemo hair. People would come up to me and say, "Where did you get your hair done?" And I was like, I really don't think you want to get your perm done the same place that I got mine done. So. But it was unbelievable. I was like Shirley Temple on steroids. So, and so we, this is in St. George, Utah, talking to patients and giving them hope, and having them write down their family history, and just educating and saving lives. So these are some great things that come out of this knowledge that we have. So what I would recommend for you, if you don't have one already, you can some offices create a family history sheet themselves. And people say, well, I already have a packet that people are filling out. Just put it on the other side of one of those pages. You will save lives. And people will come to you. There's one, Dr. Frieder out in California. I think he's with the Circle of Hope Hospital or something out there. He said he didn't ask a patient about family history. And she was later diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And he went to her and he said, I'm so sorry. And she said to him, just don't let this happen to another patient. So he speaks all the time. And he takes family history all the time. And every time he sees them, ovarian cancer is one of the red flags. Breast cancer under the age of 50, red flag. Multiple cancers, Ashkenazi Jewish. Know what those red flags are. Know what those red flags are. So he is forever going to save lives because of that one patient. He promised her, right? He promised her. So again, this is up at a cancer institute. I was serving as a patient advocate on a patient education steering committee. My friend Matt Pondon in front, who's diagnosed with brain cancer 3 times. And he goes around the country and he sings a song, If I Only Had a Brain. It's hysterical. So, and he wears a hospital gown. So he's great. But he was great on that committee because he read the literature and he said, as a brain cancer patient, I wouldn't have at one time been able to read this. So he was great to get his perspective. So take family history. Every visit counts. Take family history all the time. Have a family history form asking about the mom sides, the dad sides, and what else? Ages. Ages. Ask about it every time. So this is Ann Christian here. She's amazing. She was down there in Charleston yesterday, and she's doing awesome. And she's probably going to get, she's been dating someone for a while, but, and he's okay. They've been together 2 years, and he's like, where's that word? We, pronoun, right? We will get through this. Just like I hope that you will say that in your offices. We will get through this. So take family history. So won't you find a pre-viver, save a life, and impact a family tree? That is my challenge to you. Will you do that? Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I just want to also say thank you to all the volunteers. Thank you to you for coming, Women of Hope, the restaurant, and Myriad Genetics. Thank you for finding people, identifying, and saving lives. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.